Okay, hello. We're live, everyone. Hello, everyone around the world. We're coming to you live for the Jada Art Fair Paris 2021. We're currently streaming live from our gallery here in Paris, France. And I'm joined here with Inat Salman, my co-host, and
Hello.
hi, and Orly Bahar Levy, the head curator of the Babylonian Cultural Heritage Center in Israel. You're muted, Orly. There we go.
Keep talking.
Hold on. Oh, we're
One
talking. We're
moment.
streaming. We're streaming.
Hi, hi
Hello.
everyone.
Hi. So,
Keep going. I'm just sorry. I have to fix something.
so today we are going to have a great presentation presented to us by Orly, all about the history of the Babylonian Heritage Center. And I believe you have something prepared for us, Orly.
Mhm.
Yes. So
Yeah.
we have you enabled to share your screen. Do you have your
Oh,
presentation?
okay.
Okay,
Are you
great.
ready?
Yes, let's do it.
Can I start?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So, Babylonian Jewry historical overview.
Everybody can see the screen?
Yes.
You can see the screen?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So, hello everybody. My speech will be about the Babylonian Jewry historical overview. I'm the head curator of the Babylonian Jewish Heritage Center. And, the history of the Babylonian Jews is wide and long, but I will try to be short in the time that I have. Um, Babylonian Jewry, the oldest of all Jewish diasporas, knew good times and bad times. From its earliest days, between the years 597 till 582 BCE until the present era. I will shine a spotlight on three periods in the history of the community. The Golden Age of the Talmud and the Geonim, during which the Babylonian Jewry stood at the helm of all the Jewish diasporas. The first decade of the 20th century and the end of the 1940s, when around 95% of the Iraqi Jews left their homeland and were stripped of their culture and financial assets. The Jewish community in Babylonia, the most ancient of all diasporas, was formed after the destruction of the first temple, and they moved to the Babylonia between 597 and 582 BBC. They settled there, and built the houses there. And after Babylonia was conquered by the Persians, King Cyrus let them come back to the land of Israel, but some of them decided to stay there. What we see here in this slide is an artwork of Ephraim Moses Lillian, and the name of it is On the Rivers of Babylon. It illustrates a chapter or a paragraph in the book of Psalms that says, on the rivers of Babylon, we sat and wept while remembering Zion. For over 1,000 years, Babylonian Jewry was at the helm of all Jewish diasporas, thanks to the Rosh Hagolah and to the great academies, Nahar Dea, Sora, and Pontedita, which kept the spiritual flame of the Jewish people alive. They wrote the Talmud. It's the book of laws of the Jewish people in the diaspora. And it was also a philosophical work of the Jewish people. And all the Jewish world depend on it. Afterwards, there was the Gaonic period, but we see a model of it in our museum today. During the Gaonic period, Jews all over the world, if they had any problem or had something to ask, but they couldn't solve between themselves in their country, they used to send a question to the Gaonic yeshiva in Babylonia, and from there they got the answer. After the Gaonic period, the Jewish community in Iraq reached a new height between the mid-19th century till the mid-20th century. The head of the community was a rabbi, what we call Chacham Bashi, and with him was the committee of religious people and non-religious people. Between them, there was the members of the community who had a very high levels in the Iraqi government. For example, we can see here Sir Sasson Ezekiel, who was the Iraqi First Minister of Finance, and Menachem Saleh Daniel, and his son Ezra Menachem Saleh Daniel, who were members in the Iraqi Senate. Most of the Iraqi Jewish community during the 20th century lived in Baghdad. I mean, maybe 80% more or less. They built synagogues. Only in the area of Baghdad, there was more than 55 synagogues. They had academies, schools for boys and schools for girls. And of course, charity organizations and the healthcare. Here we can see the new synagogue in Baghdad and clinic, an eye clinic in Menachem Saleh Daniel's school. Alliance School for girls, where they used to learn sewing and embroidery. You can see it here. And the boy learning Hebrew at the Pardesa Eladim School. The Jews in Babylonia weren't, if we think what were their attitude to plastic art, so they weren't good sculptors or good painters. Some of them were working in silversmithing or goldsmithing, but they were very good in music. So some of them were very good musicians, and they were the head musicians in the Iraqi state. Here we can see the santur player, Hugi Patau, and a Jewish musicians with the Egyptian singer Kulthum in performance in Baghdad. And on the other side, we see the Iraq radio first official ensemble, but most of the players there were Jews. The head of the ensemble was Salah Lekweti and Daoud Lekweti. They were two Jewish brothers. They used to compose the songs and the melodies. They used to perform in cafes, in entertainment places, and their audience were Jews, Muslims, and Christians. At the end of the 40s, because of the circumstances, but we will talk about it soon, Salah Lekweti was forced to leave the ensemble. And another thing that I can tell you about the Jewish musicians is that in 1932, there was the International Congress of Arabic Music in Cairo, and most of the ensemble of Iraq that were there was composed by Jewish musicians. During the 19th century and the centuries before, the Ottoman Empire used to rule Iraq, what we call Babylonian. But at the second half of the 19th century, the Jews of Iraq started to make connections with the British Empire and with Europe. And there were two modern schools was opened in Baghdad. First is Alliance School for Boys, and after that Alliance School for Girls. And after that, other schools were opened in Iraq, and teachers from Europe came to teach there. And then the European influence started to get into the Iraqi Jewish community. In that time also, a lot of Jews from all over the world moved to Iraq and become part of the Jewish community. During the Ottoman Empire, we can see the costume of the Jewish ladies. It was influenced by the Ottoman Empire costume. They used to wear izar, this cloak what we see here, and they had also a veil that they used to put on their faces when they were outside the house. Here we can see the beginning of the European influence on the Jewish community, and we can see it by the clothes they are wearing. The old lady and the old man is wearing the Ottoman costume, but the young members of the family is wearing the European costume. Here we can see the children. If I won't tell you that these children is from Baghdad, I am sure that you will think that they are from Europe or America. Here we can see a bride from the beginning of the 20th century, the custom of the bride of the 20th century. She's wearing a dress. The cut is European, but the embroidery is Ottoman. It is made of tinsel. It's a special thread that the Jewish ladies used to embroider on their clothes. Here we can see bride and groom and with their bridesmaids. And again, if I won't tell you that the photo was taken in Iraq, I'm sure that you will think that it was taken in Europe. After all this, after a good time, there's always a bad time. And this is what happened to the Jews in Iraq. The pogroms of Shavuot, which took place in June, 1st and 2nd of June 1941, signified the initial shattering of the dream of integration held by the Jewish community in Iraq. It was during the Second World War, and during this time was the influence of the Nazi government in Iraq. The book of Mein Kampf was translated to Arabic, and it influenced the Iraqi government and people. During this pogrom, less than maybe 200 Jews were killed. 146 of them were identified. And as usual, I'm sorry to say, in a pogrom, there was murder, theft, abuse, rape, and destruction of synagogues. The victims of the pogrom were buried in a mass grave in the old Jewish cemetery in Baghdad. Here we can see it. These pogroms made a very hard crisis to the Jewish community in Iraq. They were sure that they are Iraqis, that they are Babylonians. And suddenly they felt that they are like an outsiders. And because of that, they said to themselves that we have to do something, that it won't happen to us again. And because of that, the underground movement, the Zionist underground movement, was established in Baghdad. They had guides who came from Israel, it wasn't the state of Israel, it was the land of Israel, and taught them how to defend themselves. They kept weapons in its case, but it will happen again, but they will have a chance to protect themselves. But during the 40s, the Israel state was established and the independent war had opened between Israel and the Arab countries around. Because of that, the condition of the Jewish community in Iraq became unbearable. Some people from the community were put to prison. Some of them were killed or hanged, and the life there was unbearable. Here we can see the prisoner of Zion, Herzliya Lokai, in prison in Iraq. And she was only one of a lot of Jews who were put in prison. On 9th of March 1950, the Waiver of Citizenship law, what we call in Arabic Tasqit, was published in the official Gazette of Iraq, the El-Waqaya al-Iraqiyya, under which the Iraqi Jews had the permission to leave Iraq and come to Israel, but there was one condition. They had to leave their homeland, to give away their Iraqi citizenship, and to become a refugee, holding laissez-passer for only one-way travel. And they could take with them only one suitcase per person, but could weigh no more than 30 kilograms. Here we can see the Jews from the Jewish community come to the synagogue Meir Tweg in Baghdad in order to register themselves and to give up their Iraqi citizenship and come to new Israeli state. Here we can see a big group of Jews from Mosul traveling to Baghdad in order to fly to Israel because the airport was in Baghdad. And Jews from all over Iraq had to come to Baghdad to wait for the flight to Israel. Sometimes they had to wait for days in the synagogue with their suitcase until their turn will come. Here we can see the stamp what was put in the laissez-passer, and it is written in Arabic, is not allowed to return to Iraq. The refugees kept to Israel in Operation Ezra Nehemiah during the years 1950 till 1952. They left their comfortable houses and settled in transit camps in the young state of Israel because there was no enough houses in the state of Israel. They found themselves living in tents, in shacks made out of wood, tin, or canvas. And in spite of all these bad circumstances, they had the force and the ability to go forward and to continue their lives and to start from scratch and to start a new beginning. Here we can see a family in a tin shack. We see the old lady and the old man with their suitcases. And what we see is on the shelves is the books. In spite of all, it was very important for them to bring their books. It was a very educated community because most of them lived in a city. Most of them they were doctors, they were engineers. Some of them were working in pharmacy. They all were academic and educated, and it helped them to start a new life in the state of Israel. Here we can see children playing between the tents in the transit camp. See the bad circumstances, and it was really, really hard. It was really, really hard. It was like starting from 0 point. This photo is one of the most important ones in our exhibition about the absorption in Israel. Here we can see the typical Iraqi Jewish family. In the background, we can see the tent, and we still see the look. For me, it looks like they were looking at the future. They were looking at, with optimism. They are smiling and hoping for better days. In spite of all the different circumstances, the Jews in Iraq who came from Iraq to Israel, they could manage, and step by step and bit by bit, they built themselves again in the state of Israel. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Orly. It was very informative. It was very eye-opening. You know something I didn't realize until your presentation? I was so shocked when you said that the Nazis had this presence in Iraq and they translated Mein Kampf into Arabic, and that influenced some of it. And then, if I remember correctly from our conversation we had before, wasn't it was also around the time that there was a new government forming in Iraq, correct? Right, when a lot of the anti-Semitic sentiments started popping up?
Yes. After the British conquered Iraq from the Ottomans after the First World War, there was an English mandate in Iraq. But during the 30s, they established the Iraqi state. So at the first year, during the 30s, the Jews had a good times there because they helped the Iraqi government. And because of the Jews had a good connections with the British, they knew English. They were very educated, and they could help the Iraqi government to establish themselves in Iraq. But after that, the Iraqi nationality, they start to grow up, and suddenly they started, bit by bit, they started to look at the Jews like strangers, in spite of the fact that they used to live there almost 2,000 years.
Yeah.
So it was a process. It didn't happen suddenly.
Yeah.
The peak of it was the Farhud pogrom in 1941.
And that was part of my question too. Also, that I was going to add. I mean, you also said in there that when the British arrived, a lot of the Babylonian Jews got in tight with the government there, and they befriended them. And so I think once that government was starting to come down, like you said, they started to look at them like they were strangers.
Yes, but it wasn't it was a process. It was a process.
Yeah.
You can call it a kind of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
I have no other word to say it.
Yeah.
But in Iraq there is the Arab, the Muslims and Christians and Jews. This is what was there. And because the Jews was very much connected with the government, I think it started to bother some people in the high government, and I think this is the way it started. And suddenly they started to look on the Jews like outsiders. And usually before that, Jews, they felt that they are Babylonians. They felt as part of the Iraqi state. It was there. They felt that it was theirs.
Yeah.
They were part of all the population.
Yeah. And one thing. Sorry.
Yes. What?
Continue.
No, it's okay.
Well, I was just going to say one thing I found so interesting that you were also telling us before was the same way Ashkenazi Jews have Yiddish, or some Sephardic Jews have Landino. There's also another kind of a Hebrew dialect that the Babylonian Jews had, correct?
Yes, exactly. As I said, after they opened the schools, the modern school in Baghdad, so they started to learn, English and French. But before that, and I think till now, the Jews of Babylonia, they used to speak Arabic, but they had a special dialect, a Jewish dialect in Arabic, like we have, the Ashkenazi Jews from Europe, they have Yiddish. So the Jews in Iraq, they had their dialect. Now, for example, if there is a few Jews in Iraq, they don't speak this dialect, maybe between them, but there is nobody to speak the dialect.
Yeah.
And here in Israel and outside of Iraq, maybe there is some Jews that are born to people who came from Babylonia, and some of them still talk this dialect. But I think that it's a language that, it will die in not a long time, because there is no people to speak it with.
It's a vanishing language, right? And like you said, to this day, there aren't very many Jews left in Iraq at all, present day.
Today, there is only 3 Jews in Iraq.
Wow. Yeah, so...
It's nothing.
Yeah.
After the Jews left Iraq, I think I'm talking about Operation Israel Nehemiah operation. Maybe there was left there between 7,000 and 10,000 Jews. And during the 60s and 70s, bit by bit, they left. And some of them, people die, people leave. And they also had persecutions during the 60s and the 70s. After the 6-Day War and Yom Kippur War in 1973, and people left. Bit by bit, the community becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And today there is Iraqi Muslims, but was born after the 60s or after the 70s. And they didn't know that there was Jews in Iraq. Yeah. If their parents or grandparents didn't tell them that we had a Jewish neighbor or something like that, He doesn't know that there were Jews in Iraq.
Yeah.
You know, it's very sad.
It's funny you say that, actually, because after speaking with you, I was sharing some of this history that I had recently learned with an Iraqi friend of mine, and she didn't really know much about the history of Jews in Iraq. Yeah.
Yes, I can imagine.
Yeah.
You know, I think there is, you know, not a lot of people. I think not a lot of people know this story, because if we talk about, you know, when we talk about Jews in the world, people talk about the Holocaust, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is what people know.
Yeah.
But not about what happened to communities who used to live in the Mediterranean states, in the, for example, Far East, Africa.
Yeah.
You know, people don't talk about it a lot. And I think that, you know, our mission is to talk about this subject and to make people know about it.
And that's what makes the work you do so important. And I'm very happy that you took the time to share it with us today. It was lovely speaking with you as always, Orly, and Gina, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, everyone, for watching. We'll be live again in a little less than half an hour with the same people here and Rubi Bakal, who's also on the call right now. So see you guys soon. All right.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.